the meeting of the Construction Board of Adjustments and Appeals to order. Are there any public comments or anyone from the public to make a comment before the meeting starts? There being none, we'll proceed to item 3. Who will call the roll? Precious?
I will. Mike Picklesheimer, Lau Lynch,
Here.
John Murray,
Here.
Ben Blake,
Here.
Carolyn Lester,
Present.
Matt Taylor, Ryan Maloney.
Here.
Please, you should have received a copy of the January 23rd, 2024 Construction Board of Adjustments and Appeals minutes. Are there, let's see here, I entertain a motion to approve these minutes.
Move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Second. And then Mr. Murray seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It seems to be unanimous. We have an appeal of a decision from concerning an airport hangar from the city airport. Mr. Jones, you want to present the appeal?
Yes, sir, Mr. Lynch, would be glad to. So just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a background, I think some of you guys may have been on the board. I don't think we have some new members on the board, but we also have Chad Gerke. He's the airport manager here. So anything that I say is wrong, I'm going to let him correct me, because this is 6 or 7 years ago. So when the airport was, I guess, kind of renovated, we had a TDK hangar come in, and then we had a Murfreesboro hangar come in. The TDK hangar, I believe, came in first, and there is not enough water flow out there for the phone-based system to provide. So we took it to the Construction Board of Adjustment and Appeals, and they made a ruling on it. So we had to do certain things like foam carts. There was some special cameras put in place, sprinkler system, and other things in order to overcome that obstacle of the water pressure. So that happened for the TDK hangar, and then I think 18 months later, the airport hangar was built by the city, and that came back to the construction board, and the board made the same ruling again. So we have 2 consistent rulings of what we've done out there based on that. But when that ruling came back through, there were some stipulations on it. There were 10 guidelines that were kind of put on, that the board put on, that restrictions that the board put on at the time. So I believe I've kind of passed out a sheet that I made, kind of a cheat sheet for me, just that one page. At the top of that page, those were the adopted restrictions by the board on January 26, 2021. So those were the 10 items. No fuel tank work, no oxygen system work, no welding, no fuel transfer, no open flame, no doping, no painting or misting. Welding is allowed, but the extent would need to be known. No open flammable liquids. And then number 10, which is no fuel tank or fuel system work, which is pretty repetitive from what number 1 and 4 was already. So I feel like that was a repetitive guideline. So moving forward, the airport hangar started construction in 2021. It was completed in 2022, October 24th is when we CO'd it. So it's been up and running for a year and a half now or so. So Mike Jones, and I may let Mr. Jones is here as well. I may let him speak on this. He's the one doing the maintenance on these aircrafts, and I believe he's leasing out the hangar. So in order to perform his business, he's looking back at some of these guidelines, and we need to slightly modify those because Mr. Jones obviously wants to, upheld his agreement to these standards, and he has, and he does a great job out there. But in order to feel more comfortable, he wants to make sure his operations meet the guidelines set forth by the board. So we have staff, including the fire marshal, a couple people from the building codes department, including myself. We met on site a month or 2 ago. We walked through the facility with Chad and with a member of Mr. Jones' staff, just to kind of look at the operation and look at what they intended to do. So we felt comfortable with the work being performed out there. but we also felt like we needed to bring this back in front of the board if we want to make any changes to these original 10 modifications set by the board. So that being said, I was going to let Mr. Jones kind of, tell about his operation out there, and if you guys got any questions for Chad or Mr. Jones, just feel free, but I'll let Mr. Jones, as the applicant, appeal to you guys for those changes.
All right, my name's Mike Jones. I'm a resident of Murfreesboro, a lifetime resident. And we've started an aircraft maintenance facility out there approximately about 14 years ago. And we started leasing from the original box hangar from Chad, and then we won a city grant that Chad... State grant that Chad put together, and the city helped fund that grant to build a hangar that we're currently in right now. We've got about 14 mechanics. We've got about 4 avionics guys. We've got an international reputation, and we're known pretty well around the world on what we do. We've got a unique operation, and that we do a total renovation on aircraft from nose to tail. It kind of got out of the traditional market values of aircraft that we're kind of known for, and which requires a lot of maintenance. We used to do all this maintenance with a company out of Nashville, Tennessee called Comil Enterprises, and they were doing all the work for us at the time. And then they had during 2010 they had the flood, a 13-foot flood, and Mr. Colbert, which was owner of the company at the time, we wound up, decided he was going to give up his work. He was getting up in age, around 90 years old. And so I bought his modifications from him. He had about 21 modifications. They're called STCs, or supplemental type certificates. That supplements the original manufacturer type certificate to the aircraft. It's an add-on. It's an improvement. So I bought those. That gave us a lot of notoriety, and then we were doing that total renovation. We coined it a lock and key Navajo. It's a classic aircraft that went out of production back in the 80s that Piper quit building. During that time, there was 30,000 production of aircraft and that were coming out. And during that time, there was Jimmy Carter era. There was a 21% interest rates. There was a products liability issue, and that whole market dried up overnight. It was a 30,000 production aircraft to 3,000. And aircraft dealers were going broke everywhere. And so during that time, I was just, prior to that, I was buying aircraft. I didn't have my own facility, and I was fixing up aircraft, and they were plentiful at the time. There were new aircraft at the Mercer Airport all the time, and no more. And even to this day, it's still about a 3,000 production. So once that market dried up, I started fixing up aircraft a little bit at a time, using different companies. And during that 2010 flood, I bought Mr. Colbert's modifications and leased a hangar from Chad at the airport. And we started our operation from scratch. And to this day, we've got an unbelievable business right now worldwide. And we go to trade shows, we exhibit what we do. We just got back from Sun and Fun in Lakeland, Florida. And we've had several consumer aviation reports. They come to you. You don't go to them. They come to you, and did a couple reports on us on what we're doing. So, long story short, we've got a thriving business. It's growing really, really fast. And we're actually growing out of the hangar. And we're actually got, wasn't too long ago, we had about 5 or 6 aircraft on the ramp that we didn't have a space for. And so we're looking to grow even more. So we cannot do maintenance in a facility like ours. It's traditional maintenance. You have to work with fuel tanks on aircraft. And working on fuel tanks means you got to drain the fuel out of it. Got fuel leaks on aircraft. They got to be rectified. And or we got to change fuel tanks out. And that's just a common maintenance thing that you do in all aircraft maintenance shops. But with this facility, we've got to overkill. I have people walk in that hangar say, I've never seen so many sprinklers in all my life. Just spontaneously. Never been in the hangar. And it's got a real overkill for our sprinkling system. We got a camera system, and I ran into a problem. We had an epoxy floor put down, and that epoxy floor, the guy had to do it. I give you a dollar number, which is crazy. It was supposed to be a $50,000 epoxy floor. It wound up being a $90,000 epoxy floor. Okay, and that's not the end of the story. But it had an electrical discharge, a million times more static discharge than it should have. Okay, so I'm getting to something here. So I had to redo the floor by another vendor. And we had to put an ESD floor in. It's an electrical discharge floor. Okay, so I'll almost guarantee you couldn't go to a maintenance facility and stand to see it's got ESD floor. Another overkill. We got an ESD floor that wound up costing me $160,000 at the end for that floor. And so we got overkill there, which you'll never see in any maintenance facility in the state of Tennessee. You won't see an ESD floor. You might see it in a manufacturing facility. So we got an overkill sprinkling system. We got overkill on the ESD floor. We got grounding rods in the floor, which we've never had. And so we got fire extinguishers. And we've never had a fire all these years in that facility. I've never heard but one fire at that airport my entire life. I've been there all my life. And that was due to a heating facility. What was it?
Electrical cord.
Electrical cord. And so it's relatively, we've never had any experiences with fires out there traditionally and at all. So we got a facility. I need to have access to do refueling in the aircraft in the facility. And it's a common practice. And there's nothing that we're really extending their neck out, really and truly, with all the facilities we got in place, if there were a fire. And so that's basically it. And anything else?
No, I think that was great. So I've also, on this sheet that I gave you guys, there's the original 10, and then after discussion with myself, the fire marshal, Chad, and I believe Mr. Jones, there was the proposed list of what would fit Mr. Jones's needs. So item 1, 2, and 4 are the only ones that we're looking at modifying from the original construction board ruling. The others would still remain, of course. The number 10 one, I thought about taking that off, or that was requested by the applicant that would take that off, because that's just a repeat of 1 and 4 with the fuel work. And I've also went back and read the 2018 International Fire Code. And that's just a small snippet that I kind of put on the bottom to remind me that Fire Marshal Lowe sent me. I believe Mr. Jones, from what he's telling me, can pull off his operation if he is in compliant with the adopted International Fire Code. I don't believe there's any operation that is all covered in the International Fire Code, which we already enforce. So I feel confident that he's still going to adhere to all the adopted guidelines for the fire code, building code. Again, we're just looking at those, trying to modify those 3 restrictions so he can perform all the needed operations out there. And I still don't think he's going to, I mean, most of your planes are drained or defueled before they go in anyways to a certain point.
Well, they come in for maintenance, and typically an annual inspection. That's where we go through the whole aircraft, inspect the entire aircraft, see if it's in service, it can go in service again for the next year. But we're always looking for fuel leaks, oil leaks,
Right.
gas leaks, and it's a common, every facility in the state of Tennessee or United States, they have to do that kind of work.
Yeah.
But we've got one of the most overkill protections I've ever seen as far as putting the fire out. But it's a common practice that we have to take care of fuel leaks. And if I have to, got an aircraft's got a fuel leak, it's raining outside, okay, and if I got to take that aircraft outside and defuel it, it's just not practical.
You're right.
It's not a practical operation being able to do that. Or some kind of weather, snow, we got to be able to do that. work inside the hangar, and we've never, to this day, in Box 1 and 2, ever had an issue. And we'll do our welding and our oxygen. We can do our welding at Box 1 and 2. Wouldn't hamper us a bit. The oxygen is a common service too. We've never had explosion to this day. I've never seen one in my entire life from filling. And we use a flame-resistant chemicals and stuff when we service the thing to be sure there's not any thing that can be flammable or transferring oxygen into the aircraft. So we got a stellar reputation. And you don't know us probably, what we do to some degree, but we've got an international reputation. The last thing we want to do is have an explosion in a brand new hangar ourselves. And so we're very, very cautious. Plus the grounding rods in the ground, we've never had that, ever. And so we ground these aircraft. Plus we got a fuel bowser with fuel in it, and it's grounded. So we're just overkill big time as far as fire.
So, yeah, Chairman Lynch, based on kind of what we've talked about, I believe if fueling and fuel transfer is performed in compliance with adopted fire and building codes, I don't believe we have an issue with those restrictions.
Mr. Gerke, do you have anything to add?
No, I think Mike covered it very well, and I appreciate the help from the fire department and from codes for walking us through this, because it not only will affect Mike, but it'll affect any future hangars that we have at the airport for maintenance and things like that, which, as you can see, Mike has been able to bring a lot of jobs to Murfreesboro and some high-paying jobs, and we'd like to keep that kind of trend going at the airport.
Mr. Jones, you mentioned overkill. One of the previous fire marshals from Murfreesboro brought up the easiest fire to put out is the one that didn't happen.
There you go. Okay.
And so nothing is overkill.
Right.
If you've
I
had
agree.
no problems with your operations. Secondly, as Mr. Gerke just said, if we make this changes, it goes with the building. Mr. Jones, we appreciate your integrity to even come to us and bring up that you want to make these changes rather than just doing it. So we appreciate your integrity, but we're going to put this onto the building, which there will be a day eventually when someone else will be doing what you're doing. And we have to keep that in mind.
That's right.
Questions for Mr. Jones on board?
Mike, can I sum up what you said in terms of current fire protection? You have a wet pipe sprinkler system, you have a wet pipe sprinkler system ready to go, you've got the ESC floor, which is extra, you've got cameras like TDK has that detect smoke and heat.
Yes.
Mounted high in the ceiling, I presume. Extinguishers, fire cart, do you have a fire
We do
cart?
have one fire cart. That was also part of the restrictions that were put on with that facility.
So basically everything that happened at TDK happened in your hangar plus.
The ESD floor.
Yeah, very good. One question about the restrictions, you have a summary sheet. We have a letter, and that has similar language boiled down in the summary sheet. Things like the low volume transfer of fuel when you're doing that. Are those the provisions that get worked into that carry with the building ultimately, or is it this more of a 9 bullet point list of that?
My thoughts were, if you make it contingent upon almost the International Fire Code, there is a fire code based on there's a section in there based on aviation.
Okay.
There's standards that it refers to for fueling, and then there's outside NFPA standards that code also adopts for fueling. I feel like after reviewing the aviation section, I think Mr. Lowe, the fire marshal as well, that those the standards that we've already adopted in the International Fire Code, they allow the fueling, the defueling, all those standards are already there mentioned in that adopted section.
So they're included by reference ultimately.
So that's why I feel comfortable with if we allow them to continue fueling work in accordance with the code, that if the codes change, right, because codes change, but this stays with the building. So this goes back to Mr. Lynch's, where we may have a new person in play, but you're still complying with the adopted code. So that kind of gives us a little, I don't want to say flexibility, but if the code changes, and then all of a sudden it allows more, do we come back to the board every time the code changes? Or do we just
Follow the code.
follow the code, what we've already adopted, so.
One thing that was mentioned during our walkthrough that I believe the fire marshal picked out was the term in the codes now that I didn't hear when we were talking about the TDK hangar or even the MTSU hangar maybe a decade or two ago, was aircraft maintenance systems and being able to allow that aircraft maintenance system. And to me, that was really important because that's what Mike is doing. And so it addresses those things with fuel tank, having to transfer fuel and checking the oxygen systems. That's all part of the aircraft operating system or maintenance system. So that, to me, was a real key in our discussion and something I didn't realize was even a phrase in our code system.
Well, it makes good sense to me. Mr. Jones, one more question. I'm assuming, most of the time I'm at the airport, the doors are up and airspace is an issue, whether you're dealing with fuel transfers or oxygen, and because you have good ventilation. Is that primarily the case when you're
Oh,
working?
yeah, I mean, that hangar is really ventilated. And we also got exhaust heater
Right.
fans now that was installed in this hangar.
Mr. Gerke's letter says, during fueling or defueling, aircraft operations, positive airflow must be established and maintained in the hangar bay until the operation is completed. And so describe the physical facilities in place now to allow that.
Well, Mike has really kind of two options there. One is most of the time Mike is operating with the hangar door open.
Okay.
And so there's free air coming in there. If we have temperatures that are below that he has a door closed, there's a vent bringing in air and then an exhaust fan. So he's got always circulation of air in that facility.
With this ESC floor, do you still ground the plane?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's double redundancy.
That's a better word than overkill.
Because on item 2, when working on the oxygen system, it's noted here on the synopsis, as long as the aircraft is grounded. On number 4, working with the school system, it says, and grounded as part of the work. What's the process for grounding an airplane when it comes in? Is that...
Just got a grounding strap for the Bowser, for the fuel Bowser, that grounds to the aircraft.
Okay.
And just discharge static.
And is that always performed when...
Yes, when we do it, always, yeah. And that's the same way, and he does fueling with trucks and stuff.
Okay.
They discharge static, and they got a procedure to discharge that and then ground the fueling truck. We do likewise. And, but it's rare. I don't see any static in that hangar anymore.
Okay, well, again, that's triple redundant. So we have no static, we're grounded, and we have a floor.
Yeah, and plus we got grounding rods in the floor. Which
So
we've never
where
had.
do you clip to?
Clip to some
A non-painted piece of metal on the
piece of metal
aircraft
on the
Okay.
aircraft,
and then to
yeah.
the floor.
Okay.
And all your transfers are low volume, more or less, aren't they?
Right,
By
and
definition.
that's one of the things I wanted to make clear was that the difference between our operation where we're fueling the aircraft at high speed and high volume as compared to what Mike Jones is doing in that he's defueling in a very low volume, a very long period of time, and then refueling in a very slow period of time in low volume. So much different. We can't do that in a hangar or even outside the door, the overhang of a hangar, do any type of fueling operation because that would be against our agreement with Titan Aviation Fuels and it'd be an unsafe situation.
What was I think you told this to me, I'm not sure, maybe I misheard, but how long does it take to like a gallon, wasn't it like so slow to defuel a plane?
Oh, it's very slow. You got a little drain cock.
It's like a gallon an hour or something like that?
Oh, no, it's faster than that.
Oh, okay.
It's real slow compared to a truck, a fuel truck. No comparison.
Other questions? No. Any comments?
Comment before you take a vote. Since I've do some work at the airport, not specifically Hangar 1, I think legal said since we have a quorum just to abstain, but I will say I'm in favor and I guess time for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Yes, do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to allow Mr. Jones to fuel his airplanes inside the hangar.
I hear a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, the call to question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And Mr. Maloney, you're abstaining. Let the record show say. So say so.
Would like to, I guess, clarify that motion if possible to, if we could, John, maybe accept the modification number 1, 2, and 4. Because I know you mentioned the fuel, but on number 2, there was some oxygen work and the routine maintenance that we were going to allow Mr. Jones to do. So, how we-
Well, if we're doing that, let's also get specific and delete number 10.
Yeah,
so if you could make a
That
motion to
acceptable
that,
the mover?
yes.
Okay. Do we need to vote on that clarification?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All in favor of the clarification, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, so, Mr. Gerke, you're approved.
Thank you.
Happy fueling. Be safe.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
That brings us to item 6 of our agenda, which is staff reports. Mr. Jones, is there any staff reports?
I do not have any at this time. No, I appreciate you guys' service on the board. Well, I guess so May next month is where we elect our annual chairman. So I suggest everybody be present unless you want to be the chairman.
Yeah, be present.
So so there's that. And I know we got a few expiring terms, so I may get with you guys here in the next few weeks, see what your wishes are on that. Again, I appreciate y'all's service, and thanks for coming out here to support us.
Thank you. Is
Kevin.
there other business?
Kevin, I got a question on codes. Murfreesboro got plans to adopt the 2021 IBC soon?
2021, most likely not. So we have to stay 7 years current from the most recently published code. So we're under the 2018, so the 2024 is the most recently published code, just came out this year. So we're under the 2018, so we're still within 6 years of that. So we have to stay within 7. So when the 2027 code comes out, we'll be over that 7 years, so we'll adopt then. So based on our track record of going from the 6 to the 12 to the 18, I'm assuming we'll go to the 2024. I have not seen the 2024. So if there's anything in there that we don't agree with, I'm not saying we couldn't go with 2021, but more than likely we'll probably go to the 2024, and I would say maybe a year and a half or 2 years right before that 27 code comes out. And then that also depends on the state, what the state does.
Yeah.
So usually right before we adopt, Smyrna, Rutherford County, Laverne, we all get together. We all do the same thing at the same time. We want to be consistent and fair to everybody. We don't want Rutherford County to be on one code and we're on another code. It just makes it too hard on everybody. So long answer, you're probably another year and a half out being on this code, and then we'll probably look at the 2024 code.
Gotcha.
All right, any other items? Well, thank you for your time. We are adjourned.